嗰度，睇電收皮你！
Imagine a restaurant so famous that every single woman in the city knows the name of its Prince of Egg Tarts. But behind the charm, he's hiding a secret so embarrassing it could destroy everything. Because while one man is faking his way to the top, the cafe he works for is on the brink of collapse. His friends are falling in love in all the wrong ways, and a single lie is about to unravel everything. And when the truth finally explodes, it doesn't just ruin his reputation. It turns into one of the most chaotic, hilarious, and unexpected showdowns you've ever seen. This isn't just about food or love. This is a story about pride, failure, and what happens when luck finally runs out. Stay until the end, and if you enjoy this kind of story, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next, because this one only gets crazier. The oven opens, revealing trays of freshly baked egg tarts that look absolutely delicious. The restaurant appears lively and energetic. The owner of the cafe, Mr. Lee, looks ready for another busy day. At first glance, Lucky Cafe seems like a thriving business. But this busy atmosphere is not the full story. While the restaurant struggles to keep up with modern tastes and changing customer demands, the real situation soon becomes clear. Nam casually walks toward the entrance holding a hamburger from another restaurant. Brother K, one of the waiters, quickly warns him that his father would not be happy if he saw him bringing food from another place into the cafe. Nam simply shrugs. Just then, Mr. Lee walks out and immediately scolds his son for buying a hamburger from another restaurant. To him, it shows a lack of loyalty, especially coming from his own son. Nam argues back, saying he has been eating egg tarts for the past 20 years and deserves the freedom to choose something different for once. With that, he walks away. It's clear that the cafe is struggling to keep up with newer, flashier establishments nearby that are drawing people away. Despite all this, Mr. Lee refuses to give up on the place he spent his life building. Fook, the delivery guy, is seen nearby, assisting two men as they struggle to lift a heavy piece of furniture into a vehicle. While rushing around trying to assist everyone, Fook accidentally bumps into a beautiful young woman, Fanny, standing nearby. The parcel she is holding slips from her hands and nearly falls into a nearby pool. Without hesitation, Fook quickly dives forward and grabs the package just before it drops into the water. Although Fook saves the day, he gets soaked. Trying to recover from the awkward moment, Fook quickly begins talking about Lucky Cafe, enthusiastically encouraging her to visit the restaurant sometime. The two exchange business cards before going their separate ways. For Fook, this might just turn into something interesting. The search for Suie, the famous Prince of Egg Tarts, and one of Lucky Cafe's most popular waiters, soon becomes the center of attention. Several female customers keep asking for him, and at first it seems completely innocent. A pile of love letters that different women have left behind for Suie is shown. Workers whisper among themselves about Suie's charm, confidence, and stylish appearance qualities that make him incredibly popular with women. Suie finally walks into the restaurant, carrying himself with the kind of groove everyone has been talking about. A beautiful woman pulls up in a sleek black car and walks towards Suie. She reveals that she bought him a brand new car. The truth turns out to be much funnier. It is soon revealed that Suie has actually been paying these women to pretend to admire him, all so he can look impressive in front of his coworkers and his boss. Meanwhile, Nam decides to meet a lady he has been chatting with online. But Nam is shocked to discover that the woman he expected is actually a man dressed as a woman. Embarrassed and completely panicked, Nam immediately runs away. He suddenly bumps into a young woman who is being chased by a group of loan sharks. She embraces and kisses him to avoid her pursuers. The woman introduces herself as Fanfan. What began as a bizarre coincidence slowly becomes the beginning of an unusual relationship between the two. Back at Lucky Cafe, Fook finds himself thinking about Fanny, the beautiful woman he met earlier. Hungry for a solution, he turns to Suie. Sensing an opportunity, Suie takes Fook's money and even convinces him to hand over his shiny bracelet as payment for romantic advice. Suie tells him that since he is not particularly rich or handsome, the best strategy is to focus on the woman's hobbies and try to impress her through them. Taking the advice, Fook learns that Fanny enjoys kung fu, so he decides the best way to win her heart is to appear like a powerful martial artist. But Suie's advice leads him into trouble. In order to prove his strength, Fook ends up challenging someone to a fight, only to realize too late that his opponent is an actual Kung Fu clan master. The clan master easily defeats Fook, leaving him completely humiliated. To make matters worse, the woman he was trying so hard to impress doesn't seem particularly moved by violence. Still, to Fook's surprise, Fanny eventually agrees to go out with him. Fook is bruised but happy. Around the same time, Fan Fan begins settling into Nam's life. During a chance meeting with Mr. Lee, Fan Fan boldly introduces herself as Nam's fiancée. She sweetly explains that Nam regrets upsetting his father and has been feeling guilty about their recent arguments. Her gentle and convincing personality quickly softens Mr. Lee's heart. Before long, Fan Fan manages to convince both Nam and Mr. Lee to let her stay with them temporarily, claiming she needs a place to hide from the loan sharks chasing her. Meanwhile, Mr. Lee faces a much bigger problem: sudden increase in rent that's expiring in a month and a struggling business. Panicked, Mr. Lee gathers his employees and shares the terrible news. The staff immediately begins suggesting ideas to save the restaurant. They eventually turn to Suie to help charm the landlady into lowering the rent. After some hesitation and a bit of extra cash offered as motivation, Suie finally agrees to take on the task. Soon, the landlady arrives and confidently walks toward the restaurant. As she enters the cafe, she suddenly slips on an egg tart that's intentionally thrown on the floor by one of the workers. Luckily for her, Suie is standing nearby and manages to catch her before she falls. For a moment, it looks like Suie's charm might actually work. But instead of being impressed, the landlady suddenly becomes furious. She attacks Suie, beating him up and causing chaos inside the restaurant. The situation only gets worse when she decides to increase the rent even more. The staff watch in shock as their plan completely collapses. Things soon get worse for Suie. After being bitten during the chaotic encounter, he visits a doctor to receive treatment and prevent rabies. The doctor informs him that the treatment requires 7 injections every day for 7 weeks. Horrified by the idea, Suie tries to escape and suddenly notices a nurse who seems to recognize him. Suie instantly panics. He does everything he can to deny knowing her. Someone brings Suie's identity card, exposing who he really is. Realizing he has been caught, Suie finally stops pretending. The nurse, named Candy, quickly begins scolding. She reminds him of a particularly embarrassing incident in secondary school when he accidentally tore her dress. Playfully threatening to report him to the police unless he compensates her, Suie gives her some money. And despite his earlier panic about the injections, he suddenly decides to continue the medical treatment after all. A good excuse to see Candy again. Fook and Fanny end up at a restaurant, but the date turns into a disaster when Fanny's dress accidentally catches fire. Later, Fook is seen back at Lucky Cafe, recounting the entire incident to Suie and the others while laughing hysterically. Embarrassed and angry, Fanny decides to end the relationship. At first, Fook pretends he is completely fine with the breakup, but soon, he quietly moves to a corner of the restaurant and begins crying. Suie walks over to comfort him. He encourages him to go talk to Fanny. Meanwhile, Suie continues receiving his painful rabies injections at the hospital. What starts as a miserable experience quickly turns sweet when Candy agrees to go on a date with him. Back at the restaurant, Mr. Lee is still struggling to figure out how to save Lucky Cafe. He suddenly has an idea, gathers his employees, and announces a decision. At first, everyone is shocked when he says he plans to close the restaurant because it is no longer profitable. But before panic spreads, Mr. Lee reveals the real plan. Instead of shutting down completely, they will transform the business and begin selling seafood, which he believes will bring in more profits. Nam, on the other hand, is facing pressure at his own job as a reporter. His boss demands more exciting stories and shows him a photograph of a wealthy man named Law Chatfi, whose daughter has gone missing. When Nam takes a closer look at the photograph, he freezes. The missing woman looks almost exactly like Fan Fan. At home, Mr. Lee and Fan Fan are enjoying themselves while playing Drinkapally. The cheerful mood slowly fades when Mr. Lee casually asks Fan Fan what she would do if her shop were forced to close in a month, leaving all her workers unemployed. Drunk and emotional, Fan Fan replies that Mr. Lee only needs money, and she could easily help him with that. The next morning, Nam calls his boss and claims that he may have information about the missing daughter of Law Chat Phi. Secretly, he begins taking photographs of Fan Fan, while she happily bonds with Mr. Lee and the workers at Lucky Cafe. Meanwhile, Fook's love life takes another unexpected turn. He learns that Fanny's ex-boyfriend has returned and plans to marry her. After hearing that the man is a university student, Fook becomes convinced that he has no chance of competing with him. Out of desperation, Fook lies to Fanny and claims that he is actually the famous Suie he has been talking about all along. His actions become increasingly mischievous as he begins deceiving people around him. Time is running out for Nam. He must decide whether to submit the photographs of Fan Fan to his office or protect her secret. The doorbell suddenly rings, causing Nam to panic. To his relief, it isn't his co-worker. Instead, it's a group of agents who have arrived to inspect Mr. Lee's apartment before selling it. Fan Fan's earlier lie about owning an apartment now begins to unravel, and she becomes visibly nervous. Realizing she can no longer keep lying, Fan Fan finally reveals the truth about her identity to Nam. He reassures her that everything will be all right. However, the situation soon becomes more complicated. Fan Fan eventually discovers that Nam had planned to give her photographs to his workplace after encountering one of Nam's co-workers who came to collect them. Meanwhile, Suie is enjoying his date with Candy and begins passionately confessing his love for her. Things take an unexpected turn when Candy makes a playful but seductive suggestion. She asks Suie to follow her to the restroom to try on a piece of her underwear. Thinking this is just another romantic adventure, Suie eagerly agrees. But Candy had a completely different plan in mind. The moment Suie undresses to try it on, Candy quickly runs out of the restroom with all of his clothes. She announces that this is her revenge for the incident years ago when Suie tore her dress. Soon, embarrassing pictures of Suie spread everywhere, leaving the once confident Prince of Egg Tarts completely humiliated. Back at Lucky Cafe, Mr. Lee and the others pretend to help him hide his embarrassment by giving him a paper bag to cover his head. However, the paper bag actually has a picture of his embarrassing moment printed on it. The workers quietly snicker among themselves, clearly amused by their prank. But the laughter soon fades when someone arrives with serious news. Mr. Lee is reminded that they only have 2 days left before they must vacate the restaurant. At the same time, another surprise arrives for Fook. Fanny's ex-boyfriend visits him personally and explains that Fanny rejected his proposal because she still loves Fook. Encouraged by the news, Fook once again asks Suie for help. Soon, Suie and Fook arrive at Fanny's workplace. Fook sincerely apologizes for his earlier behavior. Suie begins telling Fanny how deeply Fook loves her. But things quickly become awkward when it appears that Fanny is suddenly very interested in Suie. Suie immediately switches and asks if she is free that evening. The two almost kiss before the shocked Fook quickly interrupts them. Suie later admits to Fook that he often struggles with women but feels a strange connection with Fanny. However, Fanny rejects Suie's advances. Disappointed, Suie tells Fook that despite everything, it's clear that Fanny truly loves him. Then, suddenly, Suie starts making dramatic declarations of love again. This time, it seems to affect Fanny, and the two begin kissing. Heartbroken and furious, Fook storms out of the apartment. Later, Fook collapses and is rushed to the hospital. While unconscious, he has a nightmare in which Suie announces that he is marrying Fanny. When Fook wakes up, Candy attends to him. After hearing his story, she sympathizes with him. Candy promises Fook that she will help him take revenge on Suie. Fook blames Suie's behavior on the emotional damage left by his first love. After Fook's story, Candy discovers she was Suie's first love. The torn dress incident was a mishap that happened when Suie was trying to confess his feelings to Candy. Instead of love, the incident created resentment. Suie had tried to apologize many times but never succeeded. And when he finally wrote a heartfelt apology letter years later, Candy burned it without reading it. Lucky Cafe appears to have finally run out of luck. The once lively restaurant is now completely deserted as Mr. Lee quietly walks around the empty space. Suddenly, a knock on the door catches his attention. It's a little girl who comes every morning to buy breakfast for her grandfather. Mr. Lee tells her that the restaurant is closing forever. Soon, his employees arrive carrying homemade food to cheer him up. Mr. Lee tells them they still have a few hours before the restaurant officially closes, so they might as well spend that time celebrating together one last time. Fan has returned home and is now spending time with her father. He notices how much she has changed since coming back, and he asks to meet the person who influenced her so much. Fan quickly replies that there's no chance of that happening. A newspaper is handed to her father. Despite Fan's desperate attempts to stop him from reading it, he scans the page before handing it to her. To her surprise, an entire page contains a public apology written by Nam. Fan begins remembering the happy moments they shared together. She decides to accept Nam's invitation to meet him again at the mall where they first met. At the mall, Fan pretends not to notice Nam at first, but Nam quickly spots her and rushes over, apologizing sincerely for everything that happened. He shows her a collection of photo collages he made using pictures they took together. Fan is moved. She says she wants to make more merry memories. After, the two walk out of the mall hand in hand, leaving their problems behind. Meanwhile, the landlady arrives at Lucky Cafe to remind Mr. Lee that it is almost time for him to leave. Just then, the little girl returns, this time with her grandfather. The elderly man, Uncle Kin, expresses his deep gratitude to Mr. Lee for serving the community faithfully for so many years. The little girl insists that she still wants to buy something before the place shuts down, but the landlady rudely pushes her aside. Mr. Lee protests and insists on making egg tarts for the little girl and her grandfather one last time. The landlady angrily waits outside as Mr. Lee returns to the kitchen. Finally, noon arrives. Fresh egg tarts are baked and served with warm milk as Uncle Kin and his granddaughter enjoy their final meal inside the restaurant. Mr. Lee refuses to allow the landlady inside, determined to let the two customers finish their meal in peace. Furious, the landlady calls for her men. Mr. Lee also calls for help. Soon, a man named Tall Y arrives with a group of armed thugs. At first, Mr. Lee feels relieved, thinking they came to support him. But he quickly realizes they are actually there for the landlady. Just when things seem hopeless, Suie suddenly appears with his own group from the Kung Fu school. The Kung Fu fighters easily defeat Tall Y's men, sending them running away in defeat. Amid the chaos, another happy moment occurs. Fanny returns and reunites with Fook. But the conflict between Mr. Lee and the landlady is far from over. The Kung Fu clan master, Ung Lao, steps forward to protect the restaurant and warns the landlady not to come any closer. Unfortunately, the landlady defeats him with a single powerful kick. Just when all hope seems lost, a luxury car pulls up. Fan's wealthy father steps out. He reveals that he has already purchased the landlady's entire property. The landlady is shocked by the news. But moments later, she suddenly falls into Law Chat Fei's arms, charmed by the wealthy businessman. In the end, love and luck finally return to Lucky Cafe. Lucky Cafe is lucky after all. And that's where everything comes full circle, because in the end, it was never just about charm, money, or luck. It was about who they really were when everything fell apart. Some of them found love. Some learned their lesson the hard way. And some had to lose everything before they could start over. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because I break down stories like this all the time and you won't want to miss what comes next.